I've been reading dozens of research papers on this topic for the past 2 years, and there is one detail, one specific, uncomfortable detail that almost nobody talks about. Not in textbooks, not in documentaries, not in the papers themselves, and once you see it, it changes everything about how you understand your relationship to the physical world. Here it is. Right now, without any engine, without any fuel, without any sensation of movement whatsoever, your body is traveling at a combined velocity that exceeds 2 million kilometers per hour. Not metaphorically, not approximately, measurably, verifiably, 2 million kilometers per hour. And your nervous system's official report on this situation is, nothing is happening. That is not a quirk. That is not a rounding error in your biology. That is the central mystery of your physical existence, and it has implications that reach far beyond the comfortable edges of what physics currently understands. Because here is what bothers me every time I sit with this data. We spent 2,000 years convinced that Earth was the stationary center of everything, not because humans were ignorant, but because the evidence of our own bodies told us so, clearly and consistently, every single day, and we were catastrophically wrong. So the question I keep returning to, the one that pulled me into 18 months of reading on this, is simple and deeply unsettling. What if we are still wrong? What if there is a layer of motion so large, so far beyond the scale of anything we can currently measure, that our most sophisticated instruments are making the same mistake our bodies have always made, feeling nothing, reporting stillness, while something enormous moves beneath us? That is what this video is about. We are going to trace every confirmed layer of motion your body is embedded in right now. And at the end, we are going to stand at the edge of what science can actually establish and look honestly at what might lie beyond it. Subscribe to follow wherever this data leads. I am not done pulling at this thread yet. Before we stack the numbers, we need to understand why the numbers are invisible to you in the first place. Because the answer is not what most people expect. It is not that the motion is too small to detect. It is not that your senses are simply too primitive. The answer is something far more precise and far more unsettling. Your body is not broken. Your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And that is the problem. Here is the principle that explains everything we are about to discuss. Your nervous system does not detect velocity. It detects changes in velocity. That distinction sounds minor. It is not. It is one of the most consequential facts in all of physics, and it has a name. Physicists call it the equivalence principle. Galileo was gesturing toward it in the 1600s. Einstein formalized it in the early 1900s. And it means this: if you are moving at a perfectly constant speed, in a perfectly constant direction, your body has absolutely no receptor, no organ, no biological mechanism whatsoever to register that fact. The information simply does not exist inside your nervous system. Think about sitting in a long-haul flight at 35,000 feet, cruising at 900 kilometers per hour. You feel your seat. You feel the temperature of the cabin. You might feel mild turbulence, which is precisely the point. Turbulence is acceleration, a change in velocity, and your body catches it immediately. But the 900 kilometers per hour itself? Silence. Your inner ear reports nothing. Your proprioceptive system reports nothing. Every signal your body generates agrees you are sitting still. This is what physicists mean when they talk about an inertial reference frame. Inside any system moving at constant velocity, the laws of physics behave identically to a system at rest. There is no experiment you can perform from inside that system, using only what is available inside that system to determine whether you are moving or not. The universe does not provide a fixed backdrop, a cosmic floor against which motion can be measured absolutely. There is no universal stillness. There are only objects moving relative to other objects. Now here is where this gets interesting, and where most explanations stop too early. The standard answer is, you cannot feel the motion because it is constant. That is true, but incomplete. The deeper answer is this: your brain did not accidentally fail to evolve a velocity detector. Evolution had millions of years to produce one, and it did not, because detecting constant velocity would provide zero survival advantage. What threatens a living organism is acceleration, the sudden lurch, the unexpected fall, the impact. Constant motion, by definition, produces no danger and no useful information, so your brain does something more efficient. It erases it entirely. It does not suppress the signal. It never generates the signal in the first place. You are not a passive victim of physics. You are an organism that was actively sculpted over millions of years to be blind to the motion you are embedded in, and that blindness goes all the way up. I've been reading dozens of research papers on this topic for the past 2 years, sitting at my desk late at night, going through studies published in Nature Astronomy, in the Astrophysical Journal, in reports coming out of the Planck collaboration and the James Webb Space Telescope team. And across all of that reading, across all of those numbers and models and peer reviews, there is one detail that almost nobody talks about. Not in the textbooks, not in the documentaries, not even in the papers themselves, at least not directly. And once you see it, it does not let you go. It changes something fundamental about how you understand your own position in physical reality. Here is the detail. Right now, without any engine, without any fuel, without any sensation of movement whatsoever, your body is traveling at a combined velocity that exceeds 2 million kilometers per hour. Not metaphorically, not as a thought experiment, measurably, verifiably, confirmed by independent instruments across multiple decades of observation, 2 million kilometers per hour, and your nervous system's complete and official report on this situation. Every signal from every sensor your biology possesses is delivering the same verdict right now. Nothing is happening. You are still. You are at rest. The room around you is exactly as stationary as it appears. Every single one of those signals is wrong. And here is why that matters far beyond the interesting fact level, beyond the kind of thing you mention at a dinner party and then move on from. The reason it matters is historical. We have been here before. We spent approximately 2,000 years convinced, not casually but rigorously, with careful observation and sophisticated philosophical argument, that Earth was the motionless center of everything. Smart people, educated people, people who looked at the sky every night and built mathematical systems to describe what they saw. And the primary evidence they relied on was exactly the same evidence your body is giving you right now. The ground does not move. We do not feel any rotation. Objects fall straight down. Birds return to where they launched from. The stillness is obvious, and it is universal, and therefore it must be real. They were catastrophically, completely, foundationally wrong. And the instrument that misled them was not a flawed telescope or a corrupted dataset. It was the human body itself, doing precisely what it was designed to do, reporting the only reality it has access to, which is not reality at all, but a drastically simplified, survival-oriented model of reality that filters out anything it cannot use. So the question I have been sitting with for the past 18 months, the one that keeps pulling me back to this research every time I think I have fully processed it, is this. What if we are still doing that? Not in the naive pre-Copernican sense, but at a deeper level. What if there is a layer of motion so vast, so far beyond the scale of anything our current instruments were designed to detect, that our most sophisticated observatories are making the same category of error our bodies have always made, feeling nothing, reporting stillness, while something of almost unimaginable scale moves beneath the entire observable universe, including every telescope we have ever built to look for it? That is not a fringe question. That is a question being asked right now, seriously and with growing urgency, by working physicists and cosmologists at institutions including NASA, the European Space Agency, and research universities across 4 continents. There are specific datasets pointing toward it. There are anomalies in the numbers that have refused to resolve for over a decade, and there is a genuine possibility, one that I find both intellectually thrilling and quietly disturbing, that the answer lies permanently beyond the edge of what any instrument we build will ever be able to reach. We are going to trace every confirmed layer of motion your body is embedded in right now, starting from the floor beneath your feet and working outward to the edge of the observable universe. We are going to look honestly at where the confirmed data ends and where the anomalies begin. And we are going to stand at that boundary and ask the question that science is currently not able to answer. Subscribe to follow wherever this data leads. I have been pulling at this thread for 18 months, and I am not close to done. Here is where the story stops being comfortable. Everything we have traced so far, the 7 layers of motion stacking on top of each other, all of that is confirmed, measured, agreed upon. The physics behind it is not controversial, but there is a number sitting in the middle of modern cosmology right now that is controversial. Deeply, stubbornly, inconveniently controversial. And it suggests that something in our picture of the universe is either incomplete or wrong. The number is called the Hubble constant. It describes the rate at which the universe is expanding, how fast space itself is stretching in every direction. And here is the problem. When physicists measure it using one method, they get one answer. When they measure it using a completely different method, they get a different answer. Not slightly different, not within the margin of measurement error. Different by an amount that, in the language of statistics, represents a 5.76 sigma discrepancy. In physics, 5 sigma is the threshold for declaring a discovery real. This gap is beyond that threshold, and it has been growing, not shrinking, for over a decade. Let me be specific about what those 2 methods are, because the specificity matters. The first method builds what astronomers call the cosmic distance ladder. It measures the distance to nearby stars, uses those measurements to calibrate the distance to farther stars, and steps outward rung by rung until it can calculate how fast distant galaxies are receding from us. This method currently gives a Hubble constant of approximately 73 kilometers per second per megaparsec. The second method works backward from the cosmic microwave background, the faint thermal radiation left over from the early universe, using the standard cosmological model to predict what the expansion rate should be today. That method gives 67.4. The James Webb Space Telescope, which became operational in 2022, has independently confirmed the measurements underlying the first method. The gap has not closed. If anything, the confirmation made it worse. Every reasonable source of systematic error has been investigated. Instrument calibration, selection bias in the stellar samples, errors in the underlying cosmological model. Research teams across the world have spent years trying to find the mistake. They have not found it. In the history of science, discrepancies of this magnitude and this persistence have a consistent track record. The orbit of Mercury refused to match Newtonian predictions for decades, until general relativity explained why. The missing energy in radioactive decay refused to balance the equations until the neutrino was discovered. The rotation curves of galaxies refused to make sense until dark matter was proposed. Uncomfortable numbers that will not go away have a habit of eventually pointing towards something real that the existing model had no room for. The Hubble tension is that kind of number. And what it may be pointing toward, one possibility among several that physicists are currently taking seriously, is that our understanding of what is moving and what is causing that movement is not yet complete. Let me be precise about something before we go further, because precision is what separates science from speculation, and that boundary matters enormously here. Everything in this section is a hypothesis. Some of it is a hypothesis supported by multiple independent datasets that have resisted explanation for over a decade. Some of it is a hypothesis that remains genuinely contested among serious researchers. None of it is established fact. I am going to tell you exactly where the data ends and where the interpretation begins, because you deserve to know the difference. And because the honest version of this story is, I think, more interesting than the oversimplified one. With that said, here is what the data actually shows. In 2008, a team of researchers led by Alexander Koshlinsky at NASA published a paper describing something they called dark flow, analyzing the movement of galaxy clusters across a large portion of the observable universe. They found evidence of a coherent bulk motion, hundreds of galaxy clusters moving together in the same direction, at velocities that could not be explained by any gravitational structure visible within the observable universe. Not the Great Attractor, not Laniakea, nothing we can see. The motion, if real, would require a source of gravitational attraction lying beyond the cosmological horizon, beyond the edge of what we can observe, pulling on the contents of our visible universe from the outside. The Planck collaboration analyzed the same question using cosmic microwave background data and did not find the signal at statistically significant levels. Koshlinsky's team maintains that the discrepancy is methodological, not physical, and that their signal survives scrutiny. As of 2025, this debate is unresolved. The possibility is not confirmed. The possibility is also not ruled out. Separately, and this is the thread I find most difficult to dismiss, multiple independent research teams analyzing the distribution of distant radio galaxies across the sky have found a dipole signal, more sources concentrated in one direction, fewer in the opposite direction, that is, 2 to 4 times larger than it should be based on our known motion through space. This is called the radio dipole anomaly. These teams used different galaxy catalogs, different instruments, different analytical methods, and arrived at consistent results. The most straightforward physical interpretation of an anomalously large dipole in the galaxy distribution is motion. We are moving toward the direction of concentration, but the motion we have already measured does not account for the full magnitude of the signal. Either the catalogs carry systematic biases that have not been identified despite extensive searching, or the universe is structured differently at the largest scales than our standard model assumes, or there is motion we have not yet accounted for. Now, here is the thing I want you to sit with, because this is where the science becomes genuinely philosophical. If the eighth layer exists, if all 7 confirmed motions are themselves embedded in a larger bulk flow of the entire observable universe relative to something beyond its own boundary, we may never be able to confirm it. And I do not mean never, as in not with current technology. I mean never, as in the physics itself may forbid confirmation permanently. The cosmological horizon is not an engineering obstacle, it is a consequence of the finite speed of light combined with the accelerating expansion of space. Beyond a certain distance, space is expanding faster than light can travel across it. No signal from beyond that boundary can ever reach us, regardless of how long we wait, regardless of how powerful our instruments become. If the source of a possible eighth layer lies beyond that horizon, we can only ever see its effects, residues in anomalous data, tensions between measurements that refuse to resolve, cracks in a model that fits almost everything, but not quite everything, and never its own edges. We are passengers who can map every road we have traveled, but cannot see out the windows. And the windows, it turns out, may be sealed by the laws of physics themselves. So, what does all of this actually mean? Not for cosmology, not for the next generation of telescopes. For you, sitting where you are right now, embedded in every layer we have just traced. Here is what I keep coming back to. This is not fundamentally a story about speed. It is a story about the relationship between observation and reality. Every observation you have ever made, every measurement every scientist has ever recorded, every model every physicist has ever built, has been constructed from inside a system that is itself in motion. There is no outside position. There is no view from nowhere. We are not studying the universe from a fixed platform. We are studying it from a vehicle, and the vehicle has always been moving in ways we did not know about until we developed instruments sensitive enough to catch the residue. Galileo's judges were not stupid. They were looking at the same evidence you feel right now and drawing the most reasonable conclusion available to them. The lesson is not that they were primitive. The lesson is that reality is systematically designed, if that word means anything here, to conceal its own structure from observers embedded within it, which means the question is never, what do we currently see? The question is always, what are we currently unable to see, and why?